You guys all know that our why is to create really great people. It's basically what we want to do is empower happy, healthy kids. So healthy through the fitness, happiness through the fun that we put into our classes. But the most important thing is to make sure that we're empowering these kids to be confident and resilient. So resilience is where we fail at stuff, or we suck at stuff or whatever, and it's about getting back up and doing a really good job. So that's one of the important life lessons that I think cheerleading does so well. So to be able to teach this stuff, we have to have a really good connection with our kids, because otherwise just spouting it's not going to get anything with them. So first of all, we need to know that to be able to do this and to create great people, we've got to put our athletes first. So, and put their well-being first. So later on I talk about things that we've done in the past that don't do this. So asking sick kids to come to practice isn't putting our athletes' well-being first. So that's something I'm going to put an immediate stop to, and I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about that. Building a connection with the team, and again at the very end of the slide, at the end of this presentation, we'll talk about these things. When your kids are having fun in class and they're talking and they're joking and it seems like they're being disrespectful and they're not listening to you, that's because you guys are doing a really good job in the class. When your kids are having fun and joking and laughing like that, you know that they're building connections. And one of the cool things about cheerleading is making friends, and that's what we love about our sport. That's what makes it really special. That's the part where we're finding our bridesmaids. So if your kids are having fun and talking, rather than saying to them, oh, stop being so disrespectful, empathy is putting yourself in their shoes going, oh wow, they're really enjoying my practice. They're having a great time. They're connecting with each other, and this is what I want, because it makes a better team as well. If you like the people you're cheering with, you're going to do a better job when you're on the floor. So one of the things that we'll talk about is how do you still get them to do a good job when you feel like they're being disrespectful to you and talking. It might be that you say, hey, I love that you guys are getting on and this bonding's really awesome, but we're going to look really crap at practice or at competition if I don't get you back focused. So can I have you guys... try and get them back focused. So, but I think we can say words that often belittle them and make them, we lose that connection with them if we're saying, oh, you're being so disrespectful, stop talking, you're wasting my time, all of those things, finding better ways of saying it in a more connected way with them. So that's the empathy side of it. So when you can see empathy, so empathy is feeling other people's feelings or knowing how they're feeling or understanding how they might be feeling. I'm not saying don't set limits and don't have high standards. I'm saying absolutely we have to do that, but a better way to do it is by having a really good connection with your team. So, and remember, at the end of the day, it's only cheerleading. You know, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. We're just doing cheerleading, which is fun. So I think if we remember that, it's more important that the lessons that you guys take away from it as being a cheerleader than it is the cheerleading itself. You're never going to use cheerleading again. Well, unless it's a party trick to get into some club or something, you might throw a back tuck or throw a toss hand. Something's been done, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, cheerleading, the sport itself, probably isn't going to be super helpful. But the life lessons you take away from cheerleading certainly are, and that's what we want to get you guys to be able to do. And we can't do that unless we are doing empathy and connection with our athletes before we correct them. So one of my favourite websites is this lady called Karen Young. It's called Hey Sigmund. The way we've seen discipline is a really outdated model. Discipline that hurts, belittles or shames really fails our athletes because it disconnects us from them and it makes them feel small, hurtful. It can make them unconnect from us, and it can also make them think that we're really unfair, and that's where she says here, it breaks our connection and interferes with our influence. So if you're coaching a kid that just thinks you're mean or that you're unfair on them, they're not going to listen, they just completely tune out. So what I've learned, and from a whole lot of reading and stuff, is that we have three brains. We have our prehistoric brain, which is the little, it's called our old brain, which is a little bit at the back. It's the reactive part. It's the part that back in the prehistoric days, if a dinosaur came for you, you'd either fight it or you'd run away from it. So that's still a really important part of our brain. It's called the fight or flight. And that's where you go when you're stressed. So some of you would be, you'll just flight, you'll go quiet, you'll move away, you don't want to be a part of it. Some of you will fire up and get like, I'm a fire up person. I'm the fighter. So, and then we have so you kind of move from that into the next part of your brain, which they say is your feeling brain. And that's the part where all your emotions happen. So you kind of go from, okay, I felt stress, then you go into your feelings, oh, that's really unfair, or whatever feelings you're having at that point. And then you move into your thinking brain, which is like the newest part of our brain. When we hurt somebody or they're in this part of their brain, they're not thinking rationally. You think here, just you've got to get away, you've got to fight, whatever it is. Then you'll go into your feeling brain. So to be able to rationalise with any athlete or kid or whatever it might be, you have to move them into their thinking brain. What Karen Young says is that discipline that hurts or shames makes people less available emotionally and neurologically, and that's what the science shows. Second, that people learn more deeply if they're not hurting. So if you're already in a hurting phase, you're not going to learn, you're not going to be listening, it's not going to get in. So we need to connect with people first so that we can have influence on their behaviours. So like I said, if we want our teams to be quiet more often, without trying to hurt them, or we want them to learn how to do a stunt properly, and they, aren't listening, or they've dropped that stunt, or something's happened, singling that group out to do burpees or sit-ups or star jumps or jumps to tuck or whatever that might be isn't going to get through to them as a learning opportunity. It's just going to be, I've been punished, I've been singled out, I now am humiliated and hurt, and I feel pain from doing that. So you're not going to be able to teach a good lesson. And I don't think actually using conditioning as a discipline actually helps anyone learn a stunt better anyway. So it's probably not the best choice of option to do, unless it's framed in a way that, actually we need you to have stronger muscles, and clearly we need to be working on our conditioning, so actually I'm going to stop this and I need you to do press-ups, or you've obviously dropped it because you're not fit enough to do it, so we're going to do burpees, or we're going to do runs. But it has to be framed in a way that makes sense to why we're asking them to change their behaviours. So connection before correction. So I'm not asking you to be a soft coach. I'm not asking you to just let things slide. 100% opposite to that. We do not want that. We're not going to get amazing teams with high standards if we let stuff go. So whatever we permit, we promote. So if you see something, a behaviour that you don't like, then we 100% have to address it. I'm just asking you to address it in a way that's going to have a better result. So we need to have high boundaries and high expectations of our teams. It's also not about being a perfect coach, because none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And one of the things that we know is that we're building resilient kids. So the best way to do that is probably to role model that behaviour. So if you have done something wrong in the heat of the moment, and we all do it, you get into that part where those kids have just really, and you've gone, okay, that's it, 10 push-ups. Then you call down and go, oh crap, that wasn't a good thing to do. Then you can go, okay, look, you got me in the heat of the moment, and I didn't really want to react that way. It probably wasn't the right thing I'd asked you to do, so I just want to apologise. I know that feels vulnerable and weak, and in the past we've been told that that isn't a good way to build leadership, so we lead through fear so that you can have control over the class. But I really feel like it would give you a better control of the class by letting them know that you're human and that you've made mistakes. Empathy is the ability to understand someone else's feelings. And it's really easy to use empathy when you don't have anything at stake. So if your friend came up and said, oh my God, my boyfriend's left me, you'd be like, oh my goodness, are you okay? But if it's your cheerleader in the middle of your routine the week before competition and they've got a sore ankle, I'm like, oh, I just don't think I could do it. It's a bit harder. You've got like a lot of things at stake there for you to be able to show that empathy. So if you can remember still empathy is the best way forward, it will make it a little bit easier. The easier way to get to empathy is if you start from a place of good. So if you think everybody is coming from a place of good, it's a lot easier for you to give that empathy. So for example, yesterday we had an athlete who didn't do her tumble pass and then came to jumps and did a T-jump no back tuck. And I was thinking, why would she do that? And I was just immediately went into the red zone, fight. She didn't come to practice, or she didn't come to competition yesterday to go, oh, I can't wait to not throw my tumble pass, not do my tuck. I just really want to piss Kimberly off and the team of coaches, right? And I also want to bail and make a fool of myself in front of the 1,000 people that are watching. Nobody gets up in the morning wanting to do that. So that was not her intention. So, and what's even worse is that I'd seen her do that at practice multiple times. So it wasn't really a surprise. I probably should have been expecting it. And I kind of was expecting it. So as a coach, I should have dealt with that behaviour way earlier and sorted it out. And B, I'm glad I didn't talk to her in my fight, in my prehistoric brain. But a better way to handle that is finding out why she did that, how I could help her through it, how can we manage that, and just remembering that, like, if you do remember, no one comes to cheerleading practice to do a bad job. No one turns up to competition to fail in front of 1,000 people. So feeling how they felt, like she's probably embarrassed, she feels like she's let the team down. Me coming down harder on her about it would not help the situation. So the better thing for me would be, how can I help you? What can we do? Why did that not happen in a non-threatening type of way? Why did you not do that tumble pass? Is it a fitness thing? Are you scared of flipping your body over? Like, just what is it? How can I help? So that's a better way of doing, and that's kind of what empathy looks like. Okay, some quick fixes and easy wins that you can put into your practice. Sick athletes. If our why is to make better people, we're not going to ask sick kids to come to practice. We're not going to ask them to Skype in. We're not going to do any of that stuff. It's just not fair on the athlete, and it's not good for them or the parents. So the lesson here is, A, your team gets to learn how to adapt to changes. I've been backstage for the World Cheerleading Championships, ICU, with 45 minutes to redo a routine when my flyer got concussed. So if you can be adaptive a couple of weeks before competition or the week out from competition, and you've got a whole practice or a week, then that's a really good thing for your team to learn. And it's just a really good thing for athletes or people to learn to be adaptive to change, because things like that happen. The second thing is that I'm also not telling you not to change the routine if you need to change the routine. I'm not saying leave the spot open for the athlete, because if that's not the right thing to do for the team, then don't do that. Because at the end of the day, the other 30 people standing in front of you or 20 people in the team needs to come first. But the lesson there is on resilience to that athlete and to the parent as well. It happens. It happens to the best athletes in the world. So if you've got an athlete in level 1 who's centre point flyer and the mum's really grumpy because she was supposed to be at this competition, she only missed one practice and it's not fair, that's where that resilience lesson comes in. Because that type of stuff's going to happen in life, it just does. So that's the lesson that goes along with that, because at the end of, and it's the way we communicate that. So conditioning, not a punishment, which I talked about before. So I did this positive parenting course. I just want to be a great parent. And I only did it recently, so sorry, Cam. But So her name's Amy McCready, and she's really awesome. So basically, she says that any punishment you give has to be relatable, otherwise it's just not fair. So my kids, for example, would do drawings with felt tips and never put the felt tips, the lids back on, and then that would just drive me nuts, as I was having to throw out lots of felts. And in the scheme of things, it's not a really big deal, right? So my punishment was, that's it, no TV for the rest of the week. And it's like, oh, you're so unfair, it's the worst thing ever. And after I watched it, I was like, oh my goodness, that really is unfair. It's not relatable in any way, shape or form to what I'm asking them to do. So then it came down to, okay, if you don't put the lids on it, then you're going to lose your drawing privileges for the week, and Mummy's going to put them away and you're not going to get to do them. And now all the lids get put back on the pens. So if you have a stunt group that drops, sending them out for a run doesn't seem very relatable to the offence that they have done. So it might be better to have them go back to basics and hold an extension for however long, or whatever it might be. Just make sure whatever punishment you're giving relates to the crime, if that makes sense. Yeah? Not calling anybody out, but but I've so been there. I think we all have. I don't know how many. Yeah, put your hand up if you've sent your team out for a run because they've done something wrong. Right? Yeah, there we go. So we're all guilty of not being amazing coaches. I think another thing is giving kids an opportunity to learn and talk while they're doing it. So like if you're learning a new stunt or you're doing something, give them a little bit of time. Say like try on your own for a couple of times, because yeah, like do 2 and then sit down so I know that you're done. At least they're then getting to know their stunt group, they're getting to kind of feel it, because a lot of time you have to, when you're working a stunt group, it's just actually the gelling between the athletes, and if we don't give them time to talk to each other while they're doing it, then they're not going to be able to figure it all out.